So, out of pandemic boredom, a friend of mine did a Facebook project.
Uh-oh.
She hosted a cereal tournament
What?
where she posted different cereals and then asked people to vote on which ones
Oh, yes.
they liked.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
wow.
And had
Yes.
a full cereal bracket.
Yes, 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 yes. I love this.
I'm on board.
All right, so we got Fruit Loops, Trix, Pops, Honeycomb, Crunch Berries, regular Captain Crunch, Apple Jacks, Cookie Crisp, Frosted Flakes, Frosted Mini Wheats, what's this? Cocoa Krispies, Cocoa Pebbles, Reese's Peanut Butter Puffs,
Oh.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Golden Grams, Count Chocula, and Lucky Charms.
Whoa, this
There's,
isn't.
there's a lot of crummy cereals
There
in there.
are. This is an
Yes,
overwhelming list
agreed.
of garbage.
I mean, chocolate cereals are just fucking gross. I mean, I don't want my milk to be the color of fucking baby shit. Okay,
I
so
do.
there's that.
Sign me up. I do.
Yeah, I like that.
But I mean, Trix?
Yeah, Trix is garbage.
Who's
Garbage.
eating Trix?
Unless it's.
And I also,
Oh, no, that's Kix. I was like, unless it's Berry Berry Kix. Yeah, that's garbage. But no, Trix is garbage. No,
yeah,
absolutely not.
yeah.
Whether it's for kids or not.
Yeah.
That's right.
And Cookie Crisp, I mean, just no, that's not cereal. It's
I like
fucking
Cookie
cookies.
Crisp. I like it. I'm not
Do
going
you
to
remember when they
lie.
used to call Smacks Sugar Smacks?
Yes.
Anyway, I do. Yeah.
I miss those days.
What was the winner, Evan? Do you remember?
Yes, the winner, and this boggles my mind. The winner was Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
No.
But hear me out for a
Oh,
second.
okay.
the cereal it competed against was Fruit Loops.
What?
How did Fruit
Yes.
Loops get in the fucking finals?
Oh,
That's exactly my reaction.
no. I was going to say, how did Fruit Loops not win?
Oh,
Oh
we're coming down on opposite sides of the fence.
I love
Oh
it.
shit! I hate Fruit Loops.
I love Fruit
And
Loops.
I think back to I worked this job where they had snacks and things for everybody, and they always had those little cups of cereal around.
Mhm.
Fruit Loops was always the last one. No one wanted to eat Fruit Loops. They'd eat every other cereal, including Apple Jacks, which in my opinion is not really much better than
It's better than Fruit Loops, though. Or as I call it, Fruit Poops. Okay.
Somewhere in the middle of Arizona, you painted a desert and called it my
Welcome to Spoiler Peace Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of BAFCA and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a freelance writer, editor of Bitchflix, and I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And I'm Dave Riedel. I don't write for anyone at the moment because, like I said last week, no budgets. But I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association also.
Yeah, you are.
Yes, I am.
On this week's show, we've got 3 movies we're going to be talking about. The first movie we're going to be talking about is Military Wives. The second we're going to be talking about is a documentary called The Painter and the Thief.
Ha, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you too.
Or some might call it The Painter and the Thief, depending on your pronunciation.
I mean, they might. But
Those silly people.
And the last movie we're going to be talking about is The Trip to Greece. And anyone who's familiar with the Trip series movies will probably be happy to hear about this one.
yeah.
And if you're not familiar with them, then
Then you should be.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Yes,
Tune in.
you should be, because they are fun.
I just want to say really quickly, I think we should start calling it The Trip to Greece. And the only reason I say that is because I've had a hankering to watch Danger Mouse. If you guys remember Danger Mouse.
I
Do you remember
do.
Danger Mouse?
Yes.
Yeah. And there was always, every once in a while, they would have an alt typist type up the scripts for the episodes. And so all the characters would mispronounce words. It was awesome. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking of when I mispronounce things. I'm thinking of Danger Mouse.
You know, all the time I wondered. It was Danger
Did you
Mouse.
wonder if it was Danger Mouse?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't really watch much Danger Mouse. It wasn't my thing when it was out. But no, I wondered what was the root of that. And now I know.
Yeah. Well, it also, Danger Mouse, just real quick, has one of my favorite jokes of all time. And it's relevant because we're talking about Military Wives, where they perform at the Albert Hall. And Colonel K says to Danger Mouse, "DM, I don't like the look of the Albert Hall." And Danger Mouse replies, "That's not the way I would have built it either, sir." So there you have it.
Well, that makes for a convenient transition.
It
into
does.
talking about Military Wives. So Military Wives, it's based on a true
The
story.
full Monty with women, and they don't
And
get
no
named.
Basically.
nudity.
Right.
Basically, I mean, the title is relatively self-explanatory in this case. It's a story about a group of women who are in the UK. Their husbands are in the army and they go on deployment to Afghanistan. And it's about the choir that they start to keep busy and the unexpected friendships that they form and the unexpected talent that they find in themselves.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Would we say that's fairly accurate?
No. Well, yes, but no. I have a quibble.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
It's not husbands because it's spouses, because there is a queer
Correct.
woman who has a wife who also goes off. So just
Yes. Thank you for the correction.
saying, got to be inclusive here.
Yes, we do need to be inclusive. And the movie actually makes a joke about that in one scene. So
Yep.
I should have remembered that.
And I knew that joke was going to come, and it did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think everything in this movie like came that you thought was coming. It's amazing.
Yes.
Right down to Kristen Scott Thomas crying in her dead son's car. I was like, when is that going to take place? And then it did.
Oh, it totally
Then
did.
it did. And then you're like, when are they going to drive that car to the big event?
And they
And then they did.
Yeah.
I will say,
All I could.
yes.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go, Megan.
I was just going to say, I agree with you guys, like totally, that it is very predictable, very, hitting all the expected beats. There is one part that absolutely just floored me that I was surprised I didn't see it coming. And
Let me hear this. I
Yeah.
think I know what scene it is.
So it's when Sharon Horgan and Kristen Scott Thomas are fighting outside the bus, which I knew was going to happen. Yeah, and you know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know it's going to come to a head. You know
Mhm.
it's going to come either right before the performance or on the way to the performance. You know that. And they're trading barbs. Kristen Scott Thomas is insulting her parenting and insulting her daughter, who's sleeping with a lot of people supposedly. And then she's like, "We all need something to distract ourselves." And Sharon Horgan's like, "No, we don't, because all our children are still here." And I'm like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
I was like, "That was a fucking burn."
Yeah.
That was a low fucking blow. That was like,
Yeah.
damn.
I was like,
That was
need some
hardcore.
ointment for that.
Yeah, I was like, I applaud you, movie, for going there. I will say that. I was like, that was nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Steve Martin fucking torches John Candy in Plane, Trains, and Automobiles. And that scene that goes on forever. And it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe that a comedy is going to this level. I remember when I thought that when I was a kid. And then watching this, when she said the thing about the dead son, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like in a movie full of like cliches and bullshit, it was kind of refreshing to see that one moment that felt truly authentic.
Yeah. Yes. And I wish the rest of the film had been that authentic.
Yeah. Because people do fucking nasty ass shit when they're backed up against the wall,
That they do. That they do.
Yeah. So digging into the plot just a little bit more for a second, Kristen Scott Thomas and Sharon Horgan are the leads in this. And the situation is that Kristen Scott Thomas is kind of like the prim, proper spouse, and her husband, who's I think a higher rank than Sharon Horgan's husband,
her
is
husband's
going
a
out with the
colonel.
deployment. And so she's kind of had this role in the past of like kind of spearheading, I guess, like activities. And so she thinks Sharon Horgan's character is not going to take it seriously. So she partially inserts herself for that reason to the activities, but then also partially does because she's alone and needs to keep busy and like she's like craving people because she's lost her son. Her son, died. And it's like a combination of those things, but it's just, a brutal combination that sets her and Sharon Horgan kind of against each other from the opening of the film, which is how they get to that explosive blow up.
Yeah.
that we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really you really know within the first like 5 minutes or less who Kristen Scott Thomas is as a character. Like like, oh, she's pushing past someone at the corner store because she's more important.
Mhm.
And right, and like you can tell like her rigidity and you get that Sharon Horgan is very casual and laid back. Like you get all of that. I kind of wish that it had not been so, I don't want to say one dimensional, but kind of like I would have loved a little more complexity to their characters because
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, especially,
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with Sharon Horgan's work, but she's really good in this. And Kristen Scott Thomas,
She's a really good performer. She's a
Yeah.
really gifted performer.
I believe that because she's really good here. And Kristen Scott Thomas is, I told you guys, before the show, I absolutely love Kristen Scott Thomas. I will watch her in literally anything. I think she's unbelievably fantastic and has such range. And so to see them in kind of these non-complex roles is disappointing. Like I would have liked to have dug deeper. And considering there's so much material here, there's
Yeah.
military
Mhm.
issues, there's, spouses deployed, there's spouses dying, there's, children dying.
Yeah.
Like there's so much boredom, like friendship, you name it. There's so much to dig
Mhm.
into. And the movie touches on these things, but never really gets too deep. And, I know it's supposed to be like a warm, cozy kind of movie. So maybe it doesn't want to delve too deeply, but I don't know. I just kept craving a little more.
Yeah. There's a better movie that is a drama buried in there somewhere. And
Mhm.
also, I think I think that Sharon Horgan and Kristen Scott Thomas are good enough performers to make their characters seem more interesting than they actually are.
Yeah.
Which
with that.
helps a lot.
Yeah.
But I think what would have been really great is if you had maybe switched them. Have Kristen Scott Thomas play the fuck up
Yes.
and Sharon Horgan play the straight-laced whatever, because they're both
Mhm.
playing very much to type.
Yes.
Yes. Agreed.
That's funny that you say that, Dave, too. I mean, I think that's a genius idea. But the other thing is
Gracias.
de nada. But the other thing is that Kristen Scott Thomas has said repeatedly in interviews that for years that's why she started doing French films was because she was typecast as this uptight, rigid, I hate to use this term, but bitch. And that's how she was typecast in British films because there's something about the way she comes off that way. And so she said, I went to French films because I'm not typecast in French films in the same way. And so, so I completely agree with you that it would have been so much better. Sidebar, if you want to see Kristen Scott Thomas in a great fuck up role, I've Loved You So Long is amazing. Just got
Yes,
to say.
I have seen that.
Oh, good. I
Um,
love that film so
have-
much.
But have you seen Under the Cherry Moon? That's my big question for you.
No.
Oh, man. You gotta love Kristen Scott Thomas in her first film role in a movie directed by Prince, who is way out of his depth as a director in a bad screenplay. But that's neither here nor there either.
Good point.
So I totally agree. This was just super predictable. I enjoyed it in the way that you enjoy a movie that's a warm, cozy hug.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's the 80s music that they sing in their choir. I mean, shout time after time.
yes.
That's kind of my Shauna and my song.
Oh,
So-
Evan, I'm about to blow your mind. I was in a band where I would come out behind the drums and sing lead on that motherfucker.
What?
Oh, really?
Oh,
Whoa.
for show. Yeah.
Okay, I now
Yeah.
want to hear this.
Damn.
I don't remember the words very much, but I do remember the last "Oh, I'll Be Waiting," fucking belting that shit out. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. Anyway,
Love it.
I'm digging that. I'm digging a guy, going into that. I love it.
yeah. And whenever we did a cover song that was like told from the woman's point of view, we didn't change the pronouns in it because we were just kind of
Oh,
we were just kind of like, well, let them wonder. So
Thank you. I love it. I think that's brilliant. And I wish more
Thank
people
you.
would do that.
yeah,
Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. But
oh.
super predictable movie.
It is.
for
And
totes.
you know what's kind of funny about, not funny about that per se, but another reason I actually really wanted to see this film is that you so often when you see people, and we don't get a ton of films on people in the military, especially like after they've come home. I mean, there's some, of course, but we don't
Mhm.
often have a film from the perspective of spouses or significant others. And so I really like that the film is, female centric and it's, focusing on a different part of the military. And I do really like before they step on stage at the Royal Albert Hall there, the MC says this is, these women are a pivotal part or pivotal fabric of the military, but they don't often get acknowledged. And I think that's great. Yeah, I just, and this is a cozy film. I don't know. I guess I do enjoy and appreciate that at least they touch on a lot of really heavy, intense topics, but it just is such a light touch that I kept wanting more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, one of the most disappointing things was when they're at the karaoke bar and Kristen Scott Thomas mentions that she sang, what was it, Soft Cell or something at one point. And then Sharon Horgan's like, let's do it. Let's do the karaoke. And then Kristen Scott Thomas leaves and they have a conversation outside, but then she leaves. And I so wanted to see that scene. I wanted her to push through it and I wanted to see them duet Soft Cell.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
That's kind of like I can't remember which film it is, but I can picture the scene vividly. I think is it Away We Go when Melanie Linsky is doing karaoke and it's really disturbing because she's like having like a breakdown on stage like while she's doing karaoke. It might not be that. It might not be Away We Go. But anyway, there is a scene where Melanie Linsky is absolutely phenomenal and she's having like a breakdown while she's like doing a karaoke performance. And I would have loved to have seen that. Like, even if it like destroyed Kristen Scott Thomas because it reminded her of her son, I would have loved to have seen it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. I would have liked to see that. One other thing I will say about the movie, I think it had a satisfying epilogue for me personally. I mean, learning that this choir was so inspirational that it started thousands of choirs
that was nice.
around the world. I thought that was really cool. That was a really awesome thing. And I liked seeing all of the choirs singing and dancing and then them showing the different locations. I thought that was fun.
I agree. I actually really agree with that. Something else that I wish that we'd had is I wish we'd gotten a little more about the other wives. I wish we'd learned a little bit more about them. And, I really appreciate that there were, women of color. I appreciate that there's a queer woman. In the cast and in the choir, I guess I would have just liked a little more focus on them. So it didn't just feel like they were kind of, in the background. Again, I kept feeling like I keep saying this, like I wanted more. One thing I will say that something that made me absolutely laugh out loud that I really appreciated is one of the moments like closer to the end of the film when Sharon Horgan's trying to like inspire them and she's like, come on, we have to be like Rocky. Rocky doesn't, sit down and cry, and one of them says, well, in Rocky 3 he does. And I was just like, and I laughed out loud. I'm like, that's a great line. And like
yeah, that was good.
Yeah. I also appreciated the scene. Again, I wanted a little more, but I really appreciated that when they're walking through the town and there's a protester handing out brochures and she's like, oh, no, we can't protest the wars. She's like, we're married to it. And I kind of wish there'd been a little bit more, but I do appreciate an acknowledgement that, obviously not everybody is pro, wars. So I do like that was there.
Agreed.
Yeah, I liked it. So, do we have anything else to say about Military Wives, or should we move on to The Painter and the Thief?
Let's move on to The Painter and the Thief, unless Megan has something else.
Nope. Let's move on.
All right.
Cool. So, The Painter and the Thief.
Oh my God, this movie.
Holy shit, this documentary.
Oh my God, I love it.
My. How happy was I, by the way, when I started this movie and realized, A, it was a documentary, and B, there are very few subtitles. Oh, so happy. That's why I waited to watch it last, because I was like, I don't want to fucking see this stupid movie about a woman who like paints and then she becomes friends with the thief. And then I was like, it's a documentary. And I didn't read anything about it. I'm just like watching and like, wait a minute, this is a documentary. Like, because you figure it out in the first 20 seconds, because like no movie would look like that if it were a, dramatic feature. So, yeah.
No, but it is interesting that you bring that up, because watching it, I'm like, this doesn't, like, yes, it look like camera wise, it looks like a documentary, but the way it's laid out and the way it's edited, it doesn't feel like a documentary. It feels like a narrative in such a beautiful way. I absolutely love that there's no talking heads. I hate talking heads. I know sometimes it's necessary and it works, but for the most part, I don't like it. And I think I was riveted by this and I absolutely love it. And I think this is such an unusual story, obviously, that, the painter becomes, very close friends with the thief of her artwork. And it's an unusual documentary, but I love that it's such an empathetic story about humanity, forgiveness, compassion, addiction, recovery, about self-destruction, and, particularly stemming from trauma. Like, oh my God, so much trauma. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this.
I
Absolutely.
mean, all you have to know is that his parents split and mom took the 2 kids but left him. And it's just like, oh my God.
That was like all I needed to know. I'm like, oh, no wonder why his life's terrible.
Well, I know. And just like up until even when he's, for lack of a better word, recovered. That's a bad word. But anyway,
he's in recovery. That's an act.
Well, he's in recovery, but I said recovered, and I'm as somebody who is familiar with the trappings of your 12-step programs, I should have known better. But anyway, the pain on his face every time you see him until he goes to prison, just he's just in constant agony. You can just see it.
Yeah.
Agreed. Just physical and mental agony.
Yeah.
And you see it in the shots. You see it in the paintings that the artist makes of him. You just see this deep sadness and depression and just feeling of isolation. Like he has no one to see him and hear him and recognize that he's a human being. And I think one of the most compelling aspects of the film is seeing him in prison and seeing in other countries that prison doesn't have to be inhumane. He has a room and a bed and a desk and he has things.
Yeah.
And he goes to therapy and he goes through recovery and he gets in good shape. And like he leaves and he's a completely different person in all aspects of it. When you see him, he looks different.
Yeah.
And you can tell he feels different. And he goes out and he meets somebody and he has a healthy relationship and he's just transformed by the experience instead of just feeling horrible and like he has nothing he can do in life.
That I'm like tearing up listening to that, because that is his time in prison is probably my most favorite part of the film altogether. And there's so many great parts in the film, but also you're so right. It actually, like being in prison helped him. And how often can you actually say that when we're talking about incarceration here in the States? You can't, because all prison does in the prison industrial complex is just fucking destroy people in their lives. And it doesn't help and it doesn't do anything in many cases, if not most cases. And seeing how in pain he is, like the scene where he first sees Barbara's painting of him and he just breaks down and doesn't even want her touching him, and then he stands up and gets close and then he allows her to hug him. Like he's just walking around with so much trauma and so much pain all the time, that seeing him in a better space, in prison and when he gets out is just, it's beautiful. It is so beautiful to see that. I was rooting for him. I only want good things for him, and it's just great to see that he, you're right. He transformed himself and it's wonderful.
Yeah. It was really interesting that despite all of his struggles, he was able to recognize on some level that Barbara was not necessarily there to help him, but she saw him for who he was as beyond, being an addict and, criminal, et cetera, et cetera. It was really, I don't know why he, for lack of a better term, this is just something you might hear in a 12-step program room. He had a moment of clarity and was like, oh, Barbara will be my friend. Sure. Whatever compelled him to do that. One of the best decisions of his life, and he found somewhat of a kindred spirit. Somebody who was kind of a raw nerve herself in her own way. And just by the way, to your point about prisons, you fucking commies. No, I'm just kidding. I was gonna do a whole thing, but I'm like, nah, it's too important a subject to really joke about. But I had to go for one little moment. But I was just kind of riveted by this movie from start to finish, and I'm really glad that I watched it, and it makes me also want to not just discount movies automatically by their subject or by the fact that I might have to read subtitles. And you know, because I also think about, I used to see, especially when I was writing for this paper in Santa Fe, we were talking about this before we rolled, so many independent movies, which is what we're doing a lot of now, that we're seeing a lot of streaming stuff because of COVID, etc. I used to see like all these micro budget documentaries, and I miss that, especially when you see a movie that's this good about that just takes this story. I mean, there's no reason that these two should like have any kind of relationship at all, but they do, and it's wonderful, and it is just a great piece of filmmaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just so moving in a way that you hear the title and you think, okay, how can it be this moving? And then you watch it and you're riveted by the story. Yep. You're moved by it in so many different ways, exploring his life, exploring her life and her trauma. It's just, in the way that Megan was saying about how it's told in more of a narrative format. It's non-linear. It's got some back and forth, and it weaves the story together so effectively in a way that just makes you love it and care about it so much.
Absolutely. I love that it is nonlinear. The structure is fantastic, that we first get her side of the story, then we get his side of the story, and it does go back and forth. I love that. I also love that these two people who seemingly on the surface are so different, they both recognize trauma in each other, and they both recognize, the similarities. And I love that he talks about how, he's like, Barbara sees me, but I can see her too. And I think she forgets that. And, he talks about how she always is questioning him about like the difficult things. And he's like, she's drawn to the dark side. She's drawn to death. And she's drawn to my dark sides. And I love that we also see her in couples therapy with her boyfriend, and how he questions her friendship, not because he doesn't think they should necessarily be friends, but because of her kind of obsessive painting, and because of her, her self-destruction too. Like it's very obvious that he is self-destructive. And I cannot remember his name. The thief, Carl Barbarell, or
yeah, he's got one of those hyphenated Norwegian names.
And like, that he's self-destructive because, he's in the throes of addiction, and, he's, been in prison before and committing crimes, but she's self-destructive too, and it's really interesting. We knew that she had an abusive relationship because he tells us that, when he's telling about her life, that she was, a domestic violence survivor. But in that couples therapy session, it's fascinating that the boyfriend says that they both had to flee Berlin because of this ex, because he threatened to kill him too. And it's just about what that, all of the, what trauma does to a body physically, what it does to a mind, what it does to your emotions, and how you may seek out self-destructive tendencies because you don't feel good about yourself, or because it's what's comfortable. It's what is to go to the destruction. And so you gravitate towards it. And I love that here are these two people in pain who were able to come together in the most unusual of circumstances and have this really intense, intimate, connection and friendship, and through each other become these phenomenal and even better people. And that's just such a beautiful, exquisite thing to watch unfold.
It is. And I like that you brought up the therapy scene, because I feel like it asks an important question about kind of where do you draw the line when you become friends with someone? Where do you draw the line between taking care of them and taking care of yourself? Because she definitely reaches a point where she's giving Carl money to the point where you see her go to the store and she doesn't even have enough to pay for things, and she doesn't have money for rent.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes that is a question you have to ask yourself. And it's so noble to care about someone else and to want to take care of them, but like, at what point where do you draw the line and say, okay, I also need to take care of myself? And I don't think the documentary necessarily gives a definitive answer, but I like that they ask the question, and not in a shitty way.
No,
Right.
no, it's total. I mean, it's very obvious she ends up becoming very codependent, you know, like and enabling of him, and just because she cares so much, and it's completely understandable. But yeah, I love that she is with a partner who very clearly has, you know, very healthy, positive, good boundaries and understands the importance of boundaries. And I was like, that's clearly someone she needs in her life, you know, because of that. But yeah, I love that
Yeah.
scene too. I think it's so good because it just sheds more light on her and her motivations. Because that's the thing. In the beginning, I'm like, why is she so fascinated by, you know, this guy? Why does she want to befriend him? And as the film unfolds, you're like, oh, that's why. It makes so much more sense. And yeah, and the fact that they're able to see the humanity in each other, it's just, yeah.
Carl Bertle.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
You mean Carl Burball, so thank you, Carl Bertle.
Well, I don't think
So-
I can say anything as eloquent as Megan did there, just for what it's worth.
Oh.
That's so nice. That's very sweet. Thank you. I also want to talk about the very end of the film, the
Yes,
final shots. Oh my
that's exactly what I was going to say.
God. I was like, what? That felt like a sucker punch. Like, I was like, wow, that is an emotional gut punch that I should have been expecting because the rest of the film is, but I was not expecting it.
Mm,
What, that she painted herself into the
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes. She very much earlier in the film, she takes a photo of Carl Bertle and his girlfriend at the time, and who, by the way, I love his girlfriend because I love that she laid down an ultimatum and was like, "No, you need to get into rehab. I can't do this anymore." And I'm like, "Good for you. Good for you for doing that."
yeah,
And
boundaries.
yep, again, exactly. Healthy boundaries, very necessary. But yeah, so she takes this photo of them, and she's you think she's working on a painting of it, but yeah, at her gallery show, it's revealed that she has inserted herself, and the close up is on her very unusual circle back tattoo, and there's a circle back tattoo on the woman on top of him, and it's like, oh, it's her, and they're intertwined in this intimate way, and I was like, holy shit.
For totes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say that I felt a little uncomfortable about that idea?
Oh.
It felt just a little icky to me that she painted herself into the position of being on top of him in what feels like a very intimate way. And I understand the point that it's trying to make, but also if you just look at it, like, there's the interpretation of what it means, but there's also the just looking at it. And to me, I just felt uncomfortable with the idea that she painted herself in such an intimate way on top of him.
Yeah.
Because to me, that also kind of circles back around to the relationship being unhealthy in a way that's like, she's so emotionally invested in this that it's like her partner is taking a back seat to it. So I felt kind of icky about it.
I get that. And that also harkens back to when she takes the photo and she starts painting Carl Bertle's nail wound in his hand. And he starts asking, he's like, isn't this problematic that you're painting his wound, his injury? And she's like, no, it's fine. I got his permission. He's not dead. And I was like, yikes. And then she's talking about like, I'm drawn to pain, but I have one rule. It's got to be aesthetic. And I'm like, okay. But so there's that, which definitely speaks, Evan, to your discomfort. And also obviously the lack of boundaries and, crossing the line, especially when she says like, oh, the first time I saw him, I was in love with him. And I was like, oh, okay. But I also found it so profound and just stunning that here is a visual manifestation of these two souls connecting, literally intertwining, and they're connecting over their shared history of trauma and pain. And so it like really spoke to me, but I get that juxtaposition of, oh, isn't this beautiful? But also, ooh, this is also potentially really unhealthy and also uncomfortable. And And
Yeah.
it just, to me, it just was an encapsulation of how unnerving the entire documentary is. And I mean that as the highest compliment.
Yes, it is unnerving in a good way.
Mhm.
Dave, did you have any thoughts on the ending?
Other than, well, the filmmakers really wanted you to focus on it.
That's true. They did.
Because it's like, hey, just in case you missed this, we're going to linger on it before we roll credits. So I don't know. I see both sides. I definitely see where Megan is coming from and where you're coming from, Evan. And I think I lean a little more toward Icky, but at the same time, you know, I mean, who am I to fucking judge? You know, I mean, come on.
Well, but I have to say, I think if I was her partner, or even if I was his partner, I would feel a lot worse about it. Like I'd be really upset about it. So I think,
Oh, for sure.
so it's very easy for me removed to be like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. But right, in real scenario, I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What's happening? Yeah. So
Yeah. To borrow your phrase, 100%. So.
I'm self-conscious every time I say it now because I know I say it a lot.
I think it's a good, 100%. There's no gray area, you know?
Sidebar, my partner also loves it, especially when I say, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, of course you love it.
That's a good way to earn brownie points in a relationship.
Mhm. I highly recommend it, especially if you're having like a disagreement. Yes. Yes. But yeah, this documentary, holy shit, this is just amazing.
It's really good.
So good. I was not prepared emotionally for how good this was. And also I don't want to say a side note, but something important, because I know I've talked about this on the show before, and I'm very open about this and talk about it on social media. As a domestic violence survivor myself, I'm always very easily triggered when films and TV series talk about it, because so often it feels exploitative, even if it doesn't intend to be, or it comes off insensitive. And this is handled so sensitively and just brilliantly. And I really, really, on a side note and a personal note, I really appreciated that.
I'm glad. I agree. I mean, I thought it. I mean, not that I speak from a place of experience, but I agree that it does a really good job with handling it in a tactful way.
Yeah.
Agree.
Alrighty then. One final note, I would say, I love that she gets back one of the paintings that went missing, because she talks to
Right.
the other thief
Yes.
and she figures out where the painting is. Unfortunately, she doesn't figure out where the one is that Carl took, because he was high at the time and has no idea what happened to it. But I'm glad that she got at least one of the paintings back, and we get to see her get that painting back.
Am I a terrible person for thinking she got the good painting back?
I mean,
They're both beautiful, but I really like that swan nest one. I don't know. I just thought that was really stunning and striking. But yeah, no, I was so excited for her. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. What more can you ask for? That's great. Well, I guess both paintings back you can ask for.
yes, you can ask for both, but at least one. I mean, one I think is even more than she expected. So
Mhm.
that's awesome.
That is so great. Yeah.
Shall we move on to the trip to Greece?
Sure.
Okay. So, the fourth movie, am I correct, in the trip series?
You are correct.
I think I missed Trip to Spain. I don't think I saw that one, but I've seen the others. I've seen the trip to Italy, and I've seen this one.
Well, I'm going to say, Evan, if you're going to skip the trip movie, skip the trip to Spain.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's really, really hit or miss. And the ending is, I would say, unfortunate. So, which they make
That's-
reference to in the opening of the trip to Greece. But the way the trip to Spain ends, it's like, what? I think something much more serious is going on here than it's supposed to be. But then they just play it off in the trip to Greece like, whatever. You disappeared in Morocco, big deal. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's disconcerting.
I think I missed the trip to Spain too then, because I know I only saw 3 of them, but they all kind of merged together for me. But yeah, I don't remember anything
Mhm.
disconcerting happening, so maybe I missed that one too.
Yeah.
So, for those listeners who aren't familiar, this is a series of movies that have been coming out every couple of years since I think 2010. The first one, if I'm remembering correctly, was a TV series, a TV miniseries or something that they made into a movie.
I think they're all TV.
Okay.
I don't know about this one or the trip to Spain, actually. But the first 2 were definitely like 6 episodes, 30 minutes each. So they're 3 hours
Mhm.
long, and they cut them down to, an hour and 40 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the premise is that Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon, comedians and actors and performers, they are playing versions of themselves, and they go on a trip together. And the whole thing is that like they kind of don't get along, but they get along. Like they're friends, but they also have a love-hate relationship. I would say more often love than hate, but they just
Yeah.
you're just literally watching them eat food, sit at restaurants, and travel.
Yeah.
It's just like every time it's just a thin excuse for them to be on a trip together. And so that's the premise of these movies.
Yeah. If it's like if My Dinner with Andre were palatable. You know what I mean?
I was going to say visually arresting, but yes, sure. I have to say, having been, in isolation for how long now? 2.5 months. Seeing a trip film with gorgeous shots of Greece, with stunning, breathtaking views and gorgeous food, I was like, oh, this is what I needed. Needed this right now. And I did not know how much I needed it. So
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. It's just, I enjoy these. They're just very light, fun. Seeing them eat fancy food in fancy restaurants, and you're literally watching these 2 guys like riff with each other, and it's just so entertaining.
Yeah.
Like when they first arrive in Greece, Rob Brydon is singing the song Grease from the musical, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And this movie had I couldn't believe this. In the 4th movie of a series, this had the scene that I thought was the single funniest scene in any of the 4 movies. And it's right in the beginning when Steve Coogan is talking about how he gets the book and the blanket and he goes and sits under the tree and the flies force him back home. And then Rob Brydon says, you should tell that story next time you're on TV. And then he does him telling the story on talk shows. Oh my God. I was laughing. It hurt. I can't believe I'm saying this. My sides hurt by the end of that like 90-second scene. I was like,
Yeah.
I am sold on this movie no matter what happens next.
You're like, even if it goes downhill, that was great.
Oh my God. Yeah. That was a hilarious scene. And I always tune into these because these guys do amazing impressions. And so you just sit there watching them do their impressions. And for me, this one, they do Michael Caine, they do Sean Connery. But in this one, for me, the standout was the Dustin Hoffman, Laurence Olivier, Marathon Man impressions that they were doing, which are just fucking
it was
incredible.
so great. And how they break down their acting choices is like, oh, Olivier wasn't method, and it's so great.
I also really love when they're doing Arnold Schwarzenegger and then it veers into Werner Herzog.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yes.
I love it.
Fans of the show will know we've talked Herzog before, and their impressions. Steve Coogan's is amazing.
So good. It's uncanny how good it is. Yeah. That's the thing. These 2 guys are so good at this. They're so good at, riffing off of each other and just feeding off of each other's energy. It's really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just so much fun.
Mm-hmm. But
I think
I was just going to say, Evan, would you like to go first?
Well, I was just going to say, I think if I have any gripe about this one, it has to do with the just very somber kind of turn that the movie takes.
See, that's what I like. That's what I was going to talk about because I like it. So I'm so glad you brought that up too.
Yeah, I actually like the way it went somber on this one also, especially after they fumbled the somberness of the trip to Spain. So
Yeah. I absolutely love that this starts off, funny, witty, diatribe on, food and film and, life. And then it just morphs into this really thoughtful meditation on, journeys and aging and endings and death and the passage of time. And I was not, again, another film, not prepared for how, for me, surprisingly moving it was. And I thought it was such a bittersweet ending. Like, I was sobbing by the end. Also, because anytime Max Richter's On the Nature of Daylight plays, I'm a fucking puddle. I am just an absolute unraveled mess. Thank you, Arrival. Thank you, The Leftovers. Thank you for that. And now thank you, The Trip to Greece.
Yeah.
Evan, I want to hear why you didn't like it. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So, I mean, not having seen The Trip to Spain, I can't compare endings, but I don't mind when movies take kind of a left turn. I just felt like as I was watching it, it was so much of a left turn and so somber and so just heavy, especially the note that it ends on is just so depressing.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that in a series like this, you know, it's good to change up the formula because, like, toward the end of the first couple of these, they feel kind of reinvigorated and refreshed, and they feel like they've learned some lessons. But I just felt like it got just too heavy for me and too somber, and it left me feeling a little bit incomplete in the once we started to get to this. Steve Coogan leaves and goes home to be with his family because his father's died and he's with his son.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was the start to another story that I only saw just a little bit of. And so I felt like it was a left turn that got too heavy. And then I didn't get enough more of that to feel satisfied in that direction.
Mm-hmm. So when the song in during the end credits is playing, it's the Strauss opera at sunset, and I was like, that's perfect because it's at the end of a journey, it's at the end of life. And throughout the film, you know, they talk about how they're following the steps of Odysseus, going, you know, as he goes home, and they kind of hammer that home over and over and over. But yeah, I kind of loved that it's really dark and it is kind of unsatisfying in a way, very much mirroring how life is. Like, you know, like death is abrupt, you know, endings, you know, can be very abrupt and, you know, unsatisfying. And so I felt that too, because I was like, oh man, I want more of the two of them together. You know, I want this really, like, you know, kind of warmth, and I want to see them, you know, in their friendship. And that didn't happen. And, you know, it takes an unexpected turn, you know, detour, as you said. And yeah, but for me, it just really worked because I'm like, that's life. And there's something to be said about that because, you know, a lot of this film is just beautiful escapism, you know, and do you want your escapism to get really, you know, dark? You know, maybe yes, maybe no. And it also kind of reminded me, in a way, probably because they're both end in Greece, you know, of the Before trilogy, and how, you know, the beginning is so charming and romantic, and the middle is also, you know, a little more bittersweet, but still very romantic, you know, and sensual. And then, you know, the last film in that trilogy, you know, they're, you know, bickering and arguing, and it's very much like, whoa, reality has set in. And so I had kind of that in the back of my mind too. And I just, yeah, I get, Evan, I get what you're saying about how, you know, you wanted more and, you know, it kind of wasn't satisfying. But to me, the fact that it wasn't satisfying, that's what worked so well. And like I said, I was so surprised that I was just like sobbing watching this because I was not expecting to be doing that watching this.
No. Not with these kind of movies.
No.
I mean, they're very lighthearted for the most part. Not to say they don't address serious issues, because I feel like they do in the kind of wrapper of the story of, you know, the stuff that's going on in their personal lives.
Yeah. One of the things that I don't know Rob Brydon's work nearly as well as I do Steve Coogan's, but what I think that Steve Coogan, at least in the United States, doesn't get enough credit for is what a deeply nuanced performer he is.
Yes,
and he can really pull off the, you know, the broad bits and the dramatic bits and the pathos, and he always is except when he's playing Alan Partridge, he paints a really complex portrait from a lot of his characters. And you know how much I hated that movie Philomena. I
But
was
he's
so
great. But
he's so great.
great
And when
in
he
it.
fucking goes crazy at the end and like
Mhm.
shouts down those nuns, I was like, yes, yes, Steve Coogan, on your page again.
Right, but
You
that's
know,
the thing.
so-
If somebody else had done that role, it would be trite. It wouldn't feel authentic. It would be horrible. But he does it, and
Mhm.
you're totally buying into it, even though that's a terrible film. But he is
Yeah.
fantastic in that, and he's great in maybe not everything, but everything I've seen him in, I thought he was great. But yes,
Yeah, I don't remember Hamlet 2 being particularly good. But it's been a while since I've seen that movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But overall, I very much enjoy watching these movies. I enjoy watching this pair together. I hope we get another one, if for no other reason than to just see them back in action again in a couple of years and see what they've learned from their previous experiences and what they have yet to learn.
Well, they said this is the
Yeah.
last one, so says it.
No.
Yeah, they said this
when-
was it. This is
Oh,
it.
no.
Yeah, this is it. Supposedly, yeah.
Harumph. On that ending?
I knew you weren't going to like that for various reasons, and especially because of that.
Come on, guys.
By the way, I know this is speaking of left turns, but I have to say one of the conversations, and this should come as no shock to anyone. One of the conversations I love is when they're at I think they're at Delphi, and they're talking about how, they're talking about the Oracle, and they're talking about Apollo and how he basically stole her, or how it was a temple to Gaia, like it was a tribute to Gaia, and how he stole it and took all the credit. 'Twas ever thus the patriarchy. And I was like, yes, Steve Coogan, thank you. But anyway, I love that.
Yeah, that was very funny. That was a really funny line.
Yeah.
I also really very much liked the bit about camping and camping for too long. That was that cracked me up.
Yes. I also love when they talk about Alexander the Great being a gangster.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they start talking about gangster movies and doing those impersonations. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the thing. I could just listen to them. I could just watch them eat, watch them travel, and listen to them talk. I'm like, this makes me want to watch the entire series all over again, even the trip to Spain, which I don't think I saw. But yeah, I really like being in their world and kind of, observing their interactions. And
Yeah.
I mean, I also don't eat meat, but their food looked delicious. Like all their food looked so good.
Yeah.
And every restaurant
Oh,
they went
man.
to is gorgeous.
The restaurant they went to where the German woman was the server, that
Mhm.
every course there, I was just like, must eat now. So
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's the moment where Rob Brydon wants him to play Guess the Bill, and Steve Coogan just had a terrible call, I think, with his son.
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
says, "Do you want to play Guess the Bill?" No. Okay. Just completely move on from that.
Yeah.
yep.
So let's recap, folks. If we don't have anything else to say about Trip to Greece.
The only other thing I'll say
No,
is
I don't.
the only other thing I will say is that those dream sequences were interesting.
Oh
They were
yeah.
a little
I don't
jarring.
Yes. That also, I would say, didn't work so well for me, but they were kind of kooky, so I was a little more forgiving.
Yeah. No, I was just like, what's happening here? Okay, let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Weird dream sequences. All right.
I was like, is
Yeah,
that supposed to be a Seventh Seal reference? Kind of, sort of, loosely? I don't know. But
Yeah, it's funny. Michael Winterbottom directed all these, and he's just got such a varied, filmography. From like heavy drama to the fucking cock and bull story, which is also Brydon and Coogan. So it's just it kind of is a hoot to me that they would try to do something serious like that in a movie
Yeah.
like this.
Mhm.
So, but I don't know if it's supposed to be serious or if you're supposed to be like, Steve Coogan, you're having weird dreams.
You card.
Yeah.
You character, you.
Oh my God, I can't believe. Sorry, there is one more thing I want to talk about. When they drive Kareem to the refugee camp. Oh my God, that was so sad.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
shit. Like the fact that it's encased in barbed wire like a prison, like Jesus. Yeah, that and the fact that happened so early in the film, like especially also happening on the heels of, they're taking a boat and it's beautiful and they had this gorgeous, alfresco meal under a tree and then here's the refugee camp. It's a prison. It sucks.
Yeah. That was a nice touch, though.
Yeah.
To just remind us, like, hey, white privilege.
Exactly.
Just in case you didn't already realize that watching all of these movies. Hey, white privilege.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about earlier and like, in Military Wives, and we talked about this in other films, like, sometimes when something, is very warm and, and lighthearted, do those more, do the touches that are darker or have more depth, do they work? And I think, I know we can debate it, but I think it absolutely works here. And I really, really appreciated that they addressed that they addressed the refugee situation. I'm like, yes, thank you. That is important.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch. I thought for me, it worked better than some of the other stuff, but I do appreciate its commentary on aging and mortality. I think that was definitely poignant, the way it was kind of woven into the film.
Absolutely. Because aging is scary.
Don't I know it?
I wish I could be one of those people who's like, aging is great. No,
I feel like I felt like that when I hit 30. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Yeah. And then you get to the next decade and you're like,
Yeah.
Well, alrighty then. So let's quickly recap. We would say, what would we say about Military Wives? See or don't see?
pass.
Megan?
Yeah, I mean, there's some good things in it, but yeah, I would say it's definitely not something you need to run out to see.
No, I would say it's not essential, but I would say if you are looking for something that's kind of a warm hug, it's actually, I would lean more towards C, because I think sometimes people need things right now that are a little more uplifting, not so depressing.
Okay, you've convinced me. I agree. Yeah.
So yeah, I lean more towards C, but it's a qualified C. It's
Yes.
Don't run after it. But if you need something to make you smile a little bit, there's worse ways to spend your time. Definitely see the shit out of The Painter and the Thief.
Yeah.
Oh my
It's a damn
fucking
good
God.
documentary.
Yes, see it immediately. Immediately. Do not waste any time. See it.
Yes, and I think that will probably just be available video on demand wherever you kind of rent your movies. I'm not aware of it being a platform specific release.
It's going to be in virtual cinemas. So, because I think it's going to be through virtual cinemas. I don't know if it's going to be video on demand. I hope it is. So then it's a wider audience.
Look it up. And then it sounds like we would say C, The Trip to Greece, especially if you like the other Trip movies. You're kind of going to get more of the good stuff, but also maybe some stuff that you're not necessarily expecting.
Yeah, I would definitely say see it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this tremendously and thought it was great. So yeah, definitely say see it.
Yep.
At the bare minimum, it's just a little bit more fun time hanging out with Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon, which how can you say no to Dustin Hoffman impressions?
Yeah.
They're so good.
Cool. So that brings us to the end of another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. Thank you very much for tuning in, as always. So you can find the show wherever you get podcasts. And if you really like the show, please rate and review us on whatever platform you're tuning in on. You can find us at ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, and that will take you to whatever platform you choose to rate us on. And that would be extremely helpful because it helps people find the show. And you can get in touch with us in a number of different ways. You can email us. We're spoilerpiece@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter and Instagram, and Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook.
We're also on Letterboxd too.
This is true. We are on Letterboxd, so you can see our reviews and get links out to episodes. If you if you didn't already hear us this way, you can find us that way too. And What else? Oh, if you want to get in touch with us, you can also give us a call.
At 862 at 862-21 peace.
And leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, thank you as always for tuning in. Before we get to the individual outros, we wanted to share an announcement. We have an editor who is editing the show now.
Yay!
So
Yahoo!
this is very exciting for us. So thank you to Otto Clammer, who is our editor. And I'm sure you'll probably hear more about Otto at some point. But we want to say thank you to Otto for editing the show and for joining the team. And we're excited to continue working with you. And thank you for editing.
Yay. Thank you, Otto.
Thank you.
And so my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living. And you can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon.
I'm Megan Kearns, a freelance writer, editor of Bitchflix, and I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And you can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Letterboxd and Instagram at The Opinion S.
And my name is Dave Riedel. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
And we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.